The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. Today we're going to be discussing the basics of using our HomeGauge software. My name is Maria, and I work here in support over at HomeGauge, so I may have spoken to some of you over the phone. I'll be guiding us through the webinar today. We do also have Matt with us, who works here in support. He is here to answer your questions via chat. So if you have any questions at all during the webinar, feel free to type those in. Sometimes we will be able to stop and answer those questions together if it might be something that will benefit the entire group. So feel free to type those in, and we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to make sure that everybody is able to hear me and to see my screen, so just let me know real quick. All right, perfect. It sounds like everybody can hear and see my screen, so we'll go ahead and get started. So today is going to be going over the basics of using the software. So if you are brand new to HomeGauge, maybe you're testing us out with the trial version, or you're just new and ready to get started, this is definitely a good webinar for you. We are only going to be focusing on the software today. We do have another part of the program which is called your dashboard, which is more of the online features, and that can also kind of link up with your companion. We're not really going to touch on those two today. We do have some past videos that you're welcome to look for on YouTube, or we can send you those links to give you some more information about those things. But today's focus is mainly going to be on the software on your computer. So to get started, I just want to start from the very beginning and kind of just go over some of our icons and features that we have. So first, we're just going to take a quick look at your two toolbars that you have in the software. The first one is going to be the very top one, which just has some basic functions like starting a new report or opening a report, saving and printing. Those are pretty self-explanatory. You do have a nice feature right here, which right now is set to find unanswered. So that's a quick way to kind of check up on your work to make sure you've completed everything. You can also change this drop down to show you things like the unanswered styles and materials. You can also look over things that you might have flagged, and we'll go over that a little bit more later. You can also quickly edit all of your photos. That can be really helpful if you are using the companion device. And you can also quickly find any voice recordings that you might have put in. The other toolbar that you might see in your software is your template toolbar. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this down just so you can see this a little bit easier. So these icons might look a little bit similar, but these all have an uppercase T after them, and that just tells you that these are template actions. So whenever you're using this toolbar, you're not just only affecting the report that you're working on, you're also affecting your template. So these are going to be larger, more permanent changes that you can make to your software that will hopefully make your report writing a lot faster and more customized to what you're looking for. And we do have a past webinar that does go over customizing your template and gets a little bit more in depth with that. So feel free to watch that video afterwards if you're interested in making some of those changes. So those are our two main toolbars that we have in the software, and you can kind of see you are able to customize these a little bit, drag them around. You can also edit them by going under View. Sometimes we get those funny calls where an inspector might be a little bit panicked because their toolbars are missing or something looks a little bit off. You can usually quickly change that by going to the default pane layout, and that will bring it back to the software's kind of main setting, so you can always do that. And then if you go under View and Toolbars, you can kind of customize these a little bit more. So I've got Standard 52 and Template 52. Okay, and then now we're going to look over here to the right-hand side. Right now this is showing you our picture panel. This is where you would be bringing in pictures either from your phone, from your camera, from anywhere that you have them saved on your computer. This is where you can go ahead and pull those photos in. And to get started with that, you would click on this little folder icon right here. This will bring up kind of the file explorer on your computer. It looks pretty similar to that. And you just have to direct it to wherever you have those photos. So in my case, I have some test pictures on the desktop, so I could select that folder and click on OK, and that's going to give you a preview of those photos. And we sometimes refer to this as the film strip. So this is where your pictures are kind of loading. They're not in the actual report right now, but it's kind of just a preview where you can pick and choose the photos. Okay, so that was the folder icon. You also have a camera icon, and this will just either refresh that location or give you a preview if you switch that folder out. You also have some options here, and if we click on this, you can see that right now I have them displayed in the order of the file name, but you can also change that if you want to sort it by date or by the date of the picture. You've got some settings here. This would adjust the thumbnail width, so if you wanted these pictures to actually be a little bit larger, you could change that number. You can also decide if you want to show all of the photos in that location, or if you want to only sort by a certain date. So if the folder that you're directing HomeGauge to look at has a lot of different pictures in there that might, go back a couple of months, this might be a good filter. So you can just set it for a certain date range, and that'll kind of narrow it down a little bit. And then you've got some other options over here to kind of choose how your pictures are going to be refreshed over here on the side and how they would be displayed. So something good to take a look at there. Go ahead and click on OK. There is a little help button that you can click on too, and this is just, pulling up on the other side here. But this will just give you a small search area where you can look for answers to questions. We do also have a support center, which is support.homegauge.com. I would recommend going to that. That one is definitely more up to date, and we've got lots of articles there that you can search through. Okay. And you can see I don't really have any subfolders or anything selected right now. We've got a couple more icons that have to do with the pictures. These ones we'll kind of go over a little bit more just as we get into a report, but just keep in mind if you ever have questions about any of these icons here, if you hover over it, it will give you kind of a brief description of what that button does. But we'll go into those a little bit more once we start to build a report here. So that is your main picture panel over here. And then you'll see up at the top we do have a couple more tabs over here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the second one, and this looks pretty similar to that photo tab, but you'll notice that up at the top it actually says drawings. And with the HomeGauge software, we actually have some drawings that you're welcome to use. It's not a super extensive list, but it does kind of give you a head start. And if you are using like the Mr. Fix-It line drawings, or if you have any other program that you're using, you're definitely welcome to either kind of connect them with where we have them or pull them right at this point. So you could click on any of the categories that we have here. I'll go ahead and just select electrical. And then you'll see that's just going to do the same thing and just start to preview the drawings that we have for that particular section. And then you're welcome to use these in your reports. These other features are all pretty similar, so we'll kind of go over those as we start to move into the report. Your third tab over here looks like a little person. This is your contacts list. So anytime you enter a customer or a realtor into a report, or you can just add them straight to your contacts list on here, this will show up on the right-hand side. If you are looking to add a new contact, we've got this little person with a plus sign, and I'll show you how to do this once we get ready to add a realtor to our report. That's when you'd probably use that the most. You do also have an option to just filter this. Right now I have it set to show all of my contacts, but you can filter this to just show your realtors or to just show your customers. If you start to already have information in the report, you can add them by using these buttons here. You could just highlight their name and quickly add them to this report. So just some nice little features there for your contacts list. And then the fourth tab that we have over here is for Check Your Answers. And you'll see this is going to give us some more information once we actually select a template. And this CYA section is really just to give you some more information as you're filling out the report. it's really helpful for new home inspectors or for sections that you might not be quite as familiar with. It gives you some questions and kind of prompts to think about as you're filling out the report. So I'll show you what this looks like after we actually select our template and start building our report. Then we can come back to this point here. So that's just a quick overview of some of the sections that we have here. And when you're actually ready to start your report, you're going to be starting over here on the left-hand side. And we'll start right up here at the top under Customer. So the first part of the report is actually to put in the customer information. So I'll go ahead and type that in. I'm just going to use myself here. So it's really important in HomeGauge to always have, of course, your customer's name and information, but it's really important that you have their email address. That's actually what creates their user account with us. So really important to have that for both your customers and your realtors, so we can give them an account so they can actually view the reports later on. Because if you are uploading your reports, they are going to need to log in to see that information. So let me go ahead and just put in some of our information here. Super helpful number to have. That's our support line if you ever need that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put in my email address here. And now once you have in that customer's name and email address, we're going to actually create the account for them. And for that, you'll see we have this button here that says Create HG Username. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, it does give you an option to actually create that username for them. We really recommend that you just leave this part blank. Our system's going to automatically make a username for them just based off of just their name. And it's really nice because if you leave this part blank, that person might already have an account with us. Like in my case, I do have an account with this email address already. So by leaving this blank, it's just going to allow me to connect that with the account that I already have. So I'm going to leave this part blank and click on OK. Oops, and I have to log in first. That might happen to you guys too. So let me just make sure that I'm logged in here. And we'll do always remember. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So just like before, just leave this part blank and click on OK. So it says that it created the customer's account. There was an existing account and it found that and added that. So that's the really nice part about leaving that blank. You don't have to worry about creating that for them. And if it is a customer or a realtor that's used us before, they probably already have an account that it can just link up to. Right. The last part of your customer information is to put in their current or billing address. If that is different from what's going to be on the report, you can definitely fill that in. There is also a button where you could just use the report info. So when you put in the report information in the next step, you could have it just link right there and just fill that in for you. And before we move this section, I just want to bring your attention to this Add Customer button up here. So if there's several people on the report, even if it is a husband and wife, we do still recommend giving them their own separate accounts. Just in case, if anything were to happen later on, you definitely don't want to be in the middle of anything where, both clients are able to see a report, if they're separated or anything like that. So if you did have multiple customers, you can just click this Add Customer button, and that's just going to give you another tab that looks exactly the same, where you could put in that information. And this does link up with that contacts list that we were looking at earlier, so you will see that I do have myself in as that customer right now. If there was somebody else that was already in your contacts list, you could also highlight their name, and then you'll see this little icon right here just lit up, and I do have an option where I could add them as a customer. So this is going to put this in right here. So if they're already in your list, you definitely don't have to type in all of that information if it's already there. Okay, so that's how you would add in your customer information. The next section, we're just going to keep moving down right here, so we'll click on Report Info. And this report ID is really important. This is how the software will organize your reports. If you just leave this part blank, it's just going to number it for you. So you can imagine after doing, several reports over a couple of months, it can be really hard to go back and find out which report was report number 2. So we do recommend that you actually come up with your own system of categorizing your reports. And generally we say that it's a good idea to maybe use the report address and the date, or the customer's name and the date. However is, going to be a good system for you to remember which report was which. So in this case, I'm going to call this 200 Test Avenue. That'll be our report name. And then you would go ahead and just fill in the date and the time of the report. So let's say this is for today at 2:30. And then you could put in your end time right here. And then just moving along, you would just put in the information that you have on that property. Oops, that doesn't make sense. And you'll notice when you start to put in the city and the state, it will start to remember the ones that you use more frequently. So that can become very helpful later on. So we're in Asheville. We'll just put in some fake information here. Okay. You could also put in the MLS number if you happen to have that. Moving down a little bit, this is where we actually add in the realtor. Now, adding the realtor into your report is a little bit different than adding in the customer. You can see I don't really have spaces right here to put in their information. But if you look at this button here, it says Add from Reps List. So that just kind of reminds you that they have to already be in your contacts list. So if I had a realtor already in my list, I could just select them and then click Add from Reps List. That would bring them into the report. If this is a new realtor, maybe somebody that you've never worked with, we want to just make sure to add them into your contacts list first. And to do that, under this Contacts tab, you're going to use the plus sign with the person next to it. It's going to let you decide, is this a realtor or a customer? And REP just stands for Real Estate Professional. That's just kind of the little acronym that we use. So I'm going to select REP and click on OK. And just like before, start to fill in their information here. Okay, any information you have on them is going to be helpful. And then you'll see we've got a couple different tabs along the top as well. So I'll click on HG username. Just like before, we need that email address to create their account. And you'll notice I'm using the same email address that I used for my customer account. Our system does require that you have an email address to create their username. And it is just one email address per person, but just keep this in mind, your customer or your realtor, they could have one of each type. So if you normally work with, let's say this person is normally your realtor, but then they decide to purchase a home and ask you to do their home inspection report, you would need to set up a separate customer account for them. So it is possible to have the same email address for one customer account and one realtor account. So I hope that's not too confusing. So I've got my email address in here. Just like before, I'm going to leave the username blank right here and click this button to allow it to just create one for me. We'll leave this blank. Okay, and just like before, we already had an account with this email address, so it just added that to it for us. You do have some other tabs over here for their address information, and also if you want to have any notes in here, maybe about how you met this realtor, or if they happen to be a realtor that refers a lot of customers to you, you can definitely keep notes on that. And now you'll see that Maria Rep is now in our contacts list. So we just want to make sure that that's selected. It's highlighted in blue now. And then we're going to use this button here to add them to the report. So now we know that this realtor is part of our report. And then the last little section that we have here is just the information that you'll see on your report. So this would normally just pull in your name, your company, maybe your contact information. And just to give you an idea of where this comes in from, this will happen right after you activate your license. So if you're ever wondering if you need to change maybe your contact information, you would want to come up here under Options and Inspector and License, and this is where it pulls that information in. So that's how it knows my name and company name. If I had my contact information in here, it would also put that down below here. All right, so we're just going to take a quick break to see if anybody has any questions before we move on to the next section of our report. Okay, just jumping in real quick to say, I do see some people did have a little icon where their hand was raised. If that was you and you do have a question, please feel free to type that in so we can get that answered for you. Okay, John, I see your question. So John was asking if we only need to fill out the rep information if the client approves that. It's up to you. If you want that realtor information to be listed on the report, you can definitely put that in. By default, it doesn't mean that the realtor is going to be seeing the report. That kind of comes into when you actually send out the notifications and decide if you want them to have viewing and forwarding permission. So that would be mostly up to you and the customer. If you want them to be listed on there or to receive a copy, you definitely can, but you don't have to. Okay, and Adolfo is asking, is there a way to batch import a list of realtors or customers? So there is an Excel sheet that your software uses to generate your contacts list. I'm curious to see if you're maybe coming from another inspection software company, because we might have some tools that you can use to kind of convert that over to the HomeGauge format. But if you do have them listed as an Excel spreadsheet or anything like that, it might be possible. And that's always something we can kind of go over with you a little bit more in depth, maybe after this. Okay, Sarah, great question. So yes, you can send out your report as a PDF. We, of course, would like you to be using the dashboard and to upload them as HTML, just because that does store the report on our server and it gives your clients a more interactive report, but you definitely don't have to. So when we get to kind of the end of the report, when we go to upload, I'll show you how we can actually go in and upload or just save a PDF as well, because you do have that option. Okay, feel free to keep asking questions as they come along. I did just want to pop in and just remind you, so we are focusing, solely on the software today. If you are using the dashboard, if you have HomeGauge services with us, just keep in mind that we do have an appointment manager and calendar on the dashboard. So that is kind of the preferred way to do things, but definitely at the beginning, it's definitely good to kind of just learn the basics first and then get ready for the next step. But just something to keep in mind that if you are considering using the appointments feature, that is a different location where you could be collecting all of that customer's information and the invoice information and the agreement, and then just transfer that into the software. We do have a separate webinar that goes over that as well. All right, great questions so far. Feel free to type them in at any point. We'll just keep moving through this. So we've just wrapped up putting in the customer information and the report information. The next section that we have down here is miscellaneous. And this has, of course, a couple different things going along with it since it is miscellaneous here. The first one is for attachments, and kind of just piggybacking off of what I just said, if you are using the Appointments Manager, you probably won't be adding your agreement this way. This is kind of the more legacy way of doing things, where you can attach your agreement here. But you also have an option if there are other attachments or documents that you need to add to this report. You can definitely bring those in as well. So if you have a PDF that you want your client to see, or a welcome letter, anything like that, you can attach those into your report. And to actually attach something, we have this little paperclip icon right here. And I actually have to be in a template for that one. Let me see if I can still show you this way. So if I click on this plus sign here, this would just bring you to your file folders on your computer. And whichever file it is that you wanted to attach to this report, you would just go ahead and search for them. I believe I have something on here. So let's say I wanted to attach this PDF. I could do that and then actually go in and give this a name here. Okay, you'd probably want to name it something better than that, but you would just go ahead and name that PDF and you'll see that's going to be attached to the report. It will kind of tell you the size of that as well. If you are, not using the appointments feature, you can also choose to attach your agreement the same way. So you would just click on that folder and then find wherever you have that agreement saved on your computer. But that's just one way of kind of doing that. The second tab that we have over here is for your invoice. If you are using the appointments, you won't really need to come to this part in the software too much, but you can bring in your invoice this way as well. If you just downloaded the software, you probably have our default settings in here, so you might have some different services listed with some kind of general price ranges over here. We totally understand this, might be very different depending on your location, so you are definitely welcome to customize anything that we have here. So we've got a couple of things listed. Let's say I wanted to actually change this item here. So it says heated square foot, 1001 to 2000 square feet. Let's say I wanted to change that name or to change that price. I'm just going to highlight that service name and then use this little wrench icon over here. And whenever you see a little wrench in the software, it usually means that you're editing something. So I'm going to click on that, and then you'll see that I could change the name of that service. Let's say I don't want it to say heated, I just want it to have the square feet. And let's say I actually charge a lot more for that service, so I could add that. You also have the option of adding tax for that item, and then you could put in the tax rate down below. And then you'll see, just like that, now my service name has been changed, and then I have the correct price on here. You can also delete things from your invoice, so we have some additional services and features kind of down here at the bottom. So let's say, I'm not really doing any new construction. I could just highlight that item and then use the red X to delete that service. And then you also have these arrows here that can kind of change the order of your list as well. So if you're, let's say in your area you actually deal a lot with older homes, we could move this up to the very top of this list if it's something that we use a lot. And then when you're ready to actually select your items, you just want to make sure to check them off on the left-hand side. So let's say I have a home that was over 50 years old. It was about 2,000 square feet. And let's see what else I have on here. And let's say this was a repeat customer, so I'll knock off $25 for that. So you would just make your selections for your invoice right here, and then you'll see it will calculate that total for you down here. And then at the bottom, we've got some drop-down menus where we can kind of just decide kind of where we are with this payment. So under Payment Method, you would just choose the method. Let's say they're paying by check, and let's say that the payment status is that they paid at the time of the inspection. And then under Payment Note, let's just say they mailed in their check. So you could really put any notes that you want there. All right, and Sherry, I do see your question. So Sherry's asking, when you edit the invoice, is that the invoice template or is that for that particular report? So that's a great question. So whenever you're editing your invoice, you're actually changing your invoice file for the entire software. There's not a separate invoice for separate templates. So it's kind of just one invoice altogether. And you'll actually notice, so because I've changed my invoice a little bit, when you click away from it, so let's move on to Inspector Info, it will actually remind you and say, do you want to save that list for all future reports? And we'll say yes. Okay, so the next section that brings us to is Inspector Info. And this is kind of just a good spot where you could put in any additional comments that you really just want to keep for yourself. You would put those in there. Unless you're in Texas, then they would be additional comments that would show up on the report. So just keep that in mind. You can also note things like lead source. So let's say, I just want to track that this was actually a person that was found us through our website. So it's kind of just a good way to track things. You can also track the mileage that you had to drive for that particular report. So that can be helpful for doing your taxes later on. And then you can also get the driving direction. So this will pull it from where we had the address under Report Info. And if you click on Map, you'll see it gives you a couple different options on here. And that will just open up in a new window. All right, the next tab that we have is for radon tests. And this is only if you are using a company called AirCheck, which also happens to be another Asheville company that's not too far from us that does radon testing. So you've got some more information down here if you are thinking about doing radon testing or want to check out their pricing or how their system works. Definitely feel free to click on this link here to get some more information. But this is pretty nice if you do decide to use them. Then you can actually come through here and list the kit numbers, and everything will just be uploaded once those are ready. All right, and then our next section over here is for forms. So I don't have anything selected right now, but it's pretty easy to find a form in the software. You just click on this plus sign. And I've got a lot in here. Keep in mind, over here at the office, we end up installing a bunch of different things to test things out, so yours might not look so crazy as mine. But we do have lots of forms that are available. You can see if you are in Florida, we have the 4-point and the WinMit, as well as a roof certification form that you might need. There is a very kind of simple radon form in here, as well as additional picture pages. And additional comment pages that you can add. So let's go ahead and add one of these comment pages. So we'll just select this and click on OK. And then you'll see this just gives you another section where you could add in additional comments. Let's add another form that might have a couple more things to fill in here. So let's use our 4-point form. And then you'll see these are pretty easy to fill out. If you do see anything in your form that has the asterisks around it, like where it says client.fullname, if you see those asterisks around that field, that's one of our merge fields, so that will automatically fill in for you. So just keep in mind if you see anything that looks like that, it's going to automatically put that in, so you don't have to type anything in right there. But everything else, you would just go ahead and click on it, and then you can fill in your information and just kind of follow through on that form. If there is anything on your form that is always the same, maybe certain things that are always going to be present whenever you're using that form, you can definitely type in that information and then click this button here that says Set Defaults from Current, and that will make that your default form where that's already going to be filled out for you next time. So maybe things like your company name or company ID, you can go ahead and type that in and then click Set Defaults from Current, and that will just make it so the next time you use it, it will just automatically fill that in for you. Okay, and then just going back to this list of forms here, you might see a couple that might be our paid for forms, and those are usually things like the NPMA 33 or the PEST forms. Those are additional costs where they're $99 per form. So just keep that in mind. You might not see some of these in your list, but they might be available. So feel free to ask or call in if you have any questions about those. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop for questions. It looks like Matt is already doing a great job in answering some of those. I just want to make sure we get everybody answered. All right, just chiming in to let you guys know that Matt is just filling out his answers for those last two questions. Joshua did have a good question about the invoice items and if that kind of relates to what's on the dashboard. Not automatically. So if your dashboard services don't quite match up with how you have it in the software, you could either choose to upload your dashboard or your services list if you don't see anything there yet, or if you need us to kind of reset that for you, you can definitely give us a call. We can clear out what's on your dashboard and then allow you to upload what was in your software if you want that to kind of be the ones that you're using for the appointments and everything. So Zachary is asking a question about the 2013 4-point form that we have. So I would probably still recommend you can definitely call us if you don't have the updated 2018 form, because it is definitely a lot nicer, and it probably is, you know, a little bit more up to code and everything with revisions. But that particular form, you might be able to just add an additional picture page by clicking on the plus sign over here. So you could either add in this picture page, or there is a picture page with labels, which I believe is a newer one. So if you do that, that will give you another spot where you can just add in more pictures. Okay, but that does bring up a good point that I just wanted to mention. I'm going to just remove this additional comments form for 1 second, and to remove that, you just use the little red minus sign right here. So now I actually have two forms on my reports. I have my 4-point, and then I have an additional picture page. You really want to make sure that you have the first one attached to the report, and then your picture page, you could either choose to have that attached to the report separately, or more than likely you probably want to append that to previous, and that just means that this picture page is then going to be attached to the 4-point. So that's just a nice way to kind of keep those all together. All right, and Adolfo, yes, we do have some different merge fields that are used. We don't really have an extensive list of them, and that's just because they are slightly different for if they're in your software or if they're on the dashboard. If you're on your dashboard editing any of those email templates like you were mentioning, you do see a list of all the available merged fields. You don't really see those quite as much in the software, but if you are interested in seeing what we have, you can come up here to Office, Edit Report Docs, and just open up any of the items that you have in here, and then we actually have a drop-down menu that would show you the different merge fields that we have. All right, but yeah, that's definitely a little bit more advanced, so we probably won't, can't show you too much about that right now. So if you do have any questions, feel free to, we can definitely call you back or send you an email with some more information about that too. All right, no problem. You guys are asking some great questions. I love it when everybody has, some good questions for us, and it's not just me talking for like 2 hours straight, so that definitely helps. All right, so we're going to go ahead and actually move on to creating the report now. So we've kind of just got our basic information in here. So the next step is to actually select our template. So that's the last option over here. And when you click that button, you'll see that we have a couple different categories. We have some state-specific ones if you're in Texas or Florida. There might be, certain requirements where you have to use a certain template. There's also categories for new construction or commercial. The one that we're going to focus on today is the residential category. And more specifically, we're going to be looking at the Systems Residential template. That is our most popular template. It's what most people tend to use or kind of start with and then create their own template off of it. So I would really recommend, taking a look at that one. So we'll go ahead and open this up. Before I do that, it does give you some information about the template down below. It will also tell you this one was created by Russell, and then it will tell you the last time that it was modified. So if this is a template that you're using and changing, it will keep track of that down below here. I just have the standard one right now where I haven't made too many modifications to it, but yours should kind of keep track of when you're changing it. All right, so let's go ahead and open that. When you open up your template, you'll notice that you have another section over here on the left. So now we have this new section that says General Info. And if you click on this, this is kind of where the main part of your report will start. This is where the cover page information pulls from. So you'll see right here it has your comment key or definitions. And this is just to let your customers know what your different column headers mean. So usually on your report, it will say things like inspected or not inspected, not present, repair, replace. And this section just serves to tell them what you mean by each of those things. So you can definitely, use what we have here, but this is customizable as well. If you decide to change your column headers, if you've, been watching that other webinar that we have on customizing your template, you might have different column headers than what I do right now, so you would want to change this general info section just to match that. So definitely possible. Down below, this is kind of the first part that we're going to go to start answering questions on our report. So it's pretty straightforward. You have your selections over here on the left, and then all of your answer choices over here on the right. So we're just going to go ahead and highlight the first one, so in attendance. And then we have our choices over here to the right. Let's say the customer and the seller were both there. And then you just move along to the next item. So we've got type of building. And then we could choose, let's say this was a single family. And then just kind of move along through this list. Before we get too far, let me quickly show you, we've got some different column headers over here. The F, you'll notice if you click on it, it will actually tell you that this means that you're flagging something. So if you click on this, it will insert this little blue flag right here. And this is a good tip if you maybe have a section that you want to come back to later. Maybe you're not really sure right now, or you have more information that you want to put in. You can flag that item and then keep moving along through your report. And then when you finish, or whenever you're ready to kind of look things over, this little button that we were looking at the very beginning, where it says Find Unanswered, you could then choose Find Flagged, and then click Find First. and see how that just takes us right back to the first item that we have flagged. So just a good way, to make sure that you're answering everything and filling everything out. And then to remove the flag, you just click on it again, and that will take it out. You'll notice, if this is kind of your first time using the software, or if you're pretty new, you will get these little alerts that pop up to give you some more information. Probably a good idea to keep them on for a little bit just so you can get familiar with everything. But if you get tired of seeing that every time and you know what that means, you can definitely hide this so you don't have to see that every time. Okay, so the F column, we went over that, is for flagged. The S column is for status, and if you click on it, it doesn't really do anything, and it's even telling us, hey, this, it just shows the completeness of it. So this will automatically change based on your answers. So because we've answered in attendance and type of building, it's just giving us a check mark here. The check marks might look a little bit different based on how much information you put in. So if you're answering the question and you put in a picture, or if you've answered it and put in a comment in a picture, you might have some different variations of what that check mark looks like. And then you've probably noticed that over here I do have some red X's, and that's just showing that I've excluded something. So the particular template that I'm in, by default, it doesn't have style of home and home faces included. We just have them excluded. If it is something that you do want to answer, you could uncheck that X, and then that opens up that item for you. So now we could say style of home. Let's say it was a bungalow. But this X is really nice. This column here just shows that you're excluding something. So if there's something that you either don't need to answer, or if it's something that doesn't apply, you can definitely come in and exclude things. So let's say, I don't do radon testing or water testing. If you exclude those, it's not going to show up available on the report, and then when you actually print it or upload it, it's not going to be listed on there. So that way you don't have to worry about it taking up extra space on your report. It just won't be listed. And you'll see there are differences between excluding things for a report and excluding things for your template. These last two, where I excluded these, I've only done it for this particular report. So the next time that I go to this template, it is still going to be there. If it is something that you want to exclude permanently from your template, you would then click on the item, come up to our template toolbar, which remember has all those uppercase T's next to it. Click on Edit T, and then you can actually click on where it says Exclude by Default, and that takes effect for the next new report that you do. And you'll see whenever you make a template change like that, this Save T button should light up, and that kind of just reminds you that you've actually affected your template and not just your report, so you want to make sure to save that. And that just means the next time I open up the system's residential template, Radon Test is automatically going to have an X next to it. All right. Yep, and John, that's a perfect question. You can add new items as well. So if there's something that you feel like is missing from here, you're going to go right back to that template toolbar here, and you could click Add T. Let's just say this is a new item. If you wanted to add to your list of answer choices over here, that's where this part comes into play. So you would click this plus sign, and I'm just making something completely up, so these aren't going to be exciting at all, but I'll put something in here. Okay, and then now you would have this new item, and then the answer choices over here. And that is a template change. So just make sure to save your template after you do something like that. Just like before, you do have the arrows too. So if you want this new item to always be up at the top, you can definitely do that just by moving this up here. But great question. Yeah, you can always, it's pretty safe to say you can always modify what you see right here. Either by deleting things or editing items or adding new items as well. So if you wanted something to just not be on here at all, you don't even want it to have that red X next to it, you could actually highlight it and then use the Delete T button, and that will just remove it from your template altogether. And then just make sure to save it. Okay, so those are kind of the basic questions that you would answer at the very beginning of your report. We do have a little gray box over here that shows us that this is actually a placeholder where we could put a picture in. So let's go ahead and find a good picture for our cover picture. Let's see if I have anything. Oops. Let's pick, well, this looks like a nice house. Let's pick this one. So I'm just going to click that picture and then drag it over. You'll see that my cursor changes a little bit, and then you just let go. And that will bring up the photo editor. We'll go into the editor a little bit later. You probably wouldn't be editing your cover picture too much. Maybe the size of it you could change. By default, all of your pictures are going to come in at a medium size. Keep in mind if you are uploading the web presentation and your customers are logging in to see it, they can click on any of the pictures in your report and expand them to make them full size. So they don't really need to be too large in the report itself. So this is a sample of kind of the medium size. You might want to make your cover picture a little bit bigger, so you could definitely change that with these buttons here. Let's go ahead and make that large. So now we've got our cover picture in. You can continue to put in more cover pictures. Probably wouldn't want to do more than like 2 or 3 because it will take up a lot of space on there. But you would just find the additional picture and just bring that over. It could be, a short video that you have that kind of shows the landscape. It could just be, the rear of the home, anything like that. And then you can also decide to see if you want to put in a picture label. You can definitely leave this blank if you want, or you can label that. We could say front of home. All right, so that's how you would fill out the general info. Next, we're going to move into kind of like the main body of the report here. I'm first going to click on where it actually says components right here. And this shows you kind of like the table of contents, the main breakdown of your report. So this is all of the components that we have listed in here. And you might already have kind of guessed that you can change any of this as well. If this isn't really the order that you normally do your inspections in, if we're, missing something that you normally have on here, or if we have, too many things and you want to simplify this, you can definitely do all of that. So if you wanted to change the wording of something, let's say structural components, let's say I don't really want that to say components, I could click on this item, go back over here to my template toolbar, and click on Edit. And then I could actually make that just say structural. Okay, our Save T button has lit up, so that just reminds us that we did it right. We made a template change, so we want to save that. If you wanted to change the order of anything on here, let's say we always do the exterior first, we could highlight that, then use these same arrows to change that order. And then let's say that built-in kitchen appliances, let's say for whatever reason we don't inspect that area. I'm just going to highlight it and then delete it. And are you sure? Yep. And then just make sure to save your template. So it might be good, at the beginning, if this is your first time doing a report with HomeGauge or your first time using this template, you might, just want to get a feel for what we already have on here, and maybe just keep some notes about, what didn't really work so well for you, or what you would like to be changed, because more than likely, it might be something that's possible and should help you with your report writing process and make that a little bit smoother and faster for you. All right, so that's how we would add or edit these items here. You can also duplicate sections as well. So you could either do that with this template, or we do have a multi-unit template that's a little bit more suited for that. But you'll notice that right here we do have a duplicate sections little toolbar right here. This toolbar is allowing you to duplicate anything that you see here, but this will only modify it for this particular report. So it's not going to affect your template at all, it's just going to affect the report that we're in. So it's pretty easy to do. Let's say we have a garage. Let's say there's multiple garages at this property. We could highlight garage and then click on the double plus sign for duplicate. And then some of these lists will actually give you kind of a head start of different choices that you have here. So we could just say, let's say the first one is the attached garage and the second one is the detached. You could definitely do that, or if you want to type in, your own section here, you could definitely do that as well. Okay, and then now that item is duplicated. You'll notice over here the Save T did not light up because we're not doing this as a template change. This is only for the report that we're in right now. If you did want to duplicate something for your template, it is done a little bit differently. Since we're talking about the template, we actually want to use this toolbar up here. So let me go ahead. I'm going to remove these duplicate items for a second so we can kind of do that over. So I'm going to highlight Garage 2 and then use this red X down below. Okay, let's say we actually want our template to always have 2 sections for garages. We can change that in our template by clicking Garage and then clicking Edit T, T for template. You'll see we have our 2 choices here. And it's really important that you have your items listed here in the order that you want them to duplicate in. So if we always want detached to be the first one, you would want to make sure to use those arrows and change that. Or if you need to add something or take away something, make sure to use these buttons over here to help you do that. So plus would be adding a new section. The edit would allow you to modify this name, or you could use the arrows to remove to change the order of anything. So in order for this to duplicate for your template, we have our 2 choices here. We just want to change this number here. So it says default number of repeats to start with. If we want this to be duplicated and show both of these every time, we just want to make sure to change that to 2. And then we'll click on OK. That was a template change, so we're going to click Save T. And you're probably thinking, well, Maria didn't really do anything. It doesn't say that it's duplicated. Whenever you make a change like that, you don't see it until the next time you use that template. So we would want to make sure to just save our template and then close out and come back to it. So let's actually do that. Let me save our report where we are. So we'll do Save T. I'm sorry, save, just saving the report. Then the next time you use this template, you'll see that garage is already duplicated there. So it is always a good idea whenever you're modifying your template to maybe do that when you're not in a report, just so you don't run into any issues where it might not be the same version that you were working off of. So if you are thinking about changing your template, it's always probably a good idea to save it as an alternate copy, so you still keep the original one, but then you can kind of go back and still have the original if you need to look at that one. Okay, so let's go back to that report. So we'll go to Open, and that's showing up on my other screen here, so let me move that over. Okay, and we'll open this up. Okay, any questions so far about editing these components before we start to move into kind of how they break down over here? Okay, no questions so far, so hopefully everybody is feeling pretty good about everything so far. We're just going to keep moving along through the list of components over here. So now we're actually going to go into answering these components. So let's go into the first one, which is exterior. All of these are going to work the same way, so I'll kind of just focus on one right now, but just keep in mind you would just repeat the same thing for the next component. So when you click on that item, you'll see this opens up the exterior section. we've got a couple different items listed. I'm just going to use this little bar right here and just bring that down so you can see it a little bit more. You can always come in here and customize the sizing of some of these things. So you can, stretch these out as much as you need to. And then the same thing with these side panels as well. Sometimes you can move this over so you can actually get 2 columns of pictures like that too. Just kind of, depending on what works for you. Okay, so these are going to be all of our inspection items that we have listed for exterior. You'll notice that we still have that same F column for flag, and then we have the S column for status, so those work just the same as before. But then we actually have a couple more column headers over here. This key right here will just tell you what all of those things stand for. So we've got inspected, not present, repair, replace, and exclude. Remember, exclude, whenever you're doing that, that item's not going to show up on the report at all. So because we have additional buildings crossed off right here, it's not even going to say that heading on there, so that'll save you some space that way. To highlight these items or to answer them, you just simply click below on the corresponding little grid. If you want to quickly answer everything, you can also double click on the top of the column header. So let's say I've already decided that these 2 items need to be replaced, but everything else has just been inspected. I could just double click up here and that'll fill in everything else for you. So it's just a little shortcut to have. The repair replace column is a little bit different than the other columns on here. So because this item needs some type of repair done, we're going to automatically put your comment, whatever you've written for this item, is going to show up in the main part of the report, and then it's also going to show up in the summary. So we just have it set up like that by default, just kind of for your safety and for your customers. We just want to make sure that your customers are really seeing the items that need to be fixed, and that's highlighted for you. So just keep in mind it will automatically put that comment and picture in the summary for you. So we've now answered everything by checking everything off. Our next step is to actually go ahead and put some comments in here. So wall cladding, we can come down here. This is where you would type in your comment. Feel free, to type in whatever you'd like down here, or you can take a look to see what we have in our comment library. And to get to that library, you're going to use this little wand right here. It's like your little magic wand to give you some help here. And this will bring up all the comments that we have for this particular inspection item. So you can see this is for wall cladding up here. And then you could just come through, let's say that I found a comment that really works well for me. Let me go ahead and let's pick this one. I'm going to pick one that has smart text in it, and you'll see this has asterisks going around it. Don't be put off by those. Those just mean that it's kind of like a fill in the blank comment. So instead of having separate comments that have all of the possible locations, it's just going to ask you to fill that in. So I'm going to highlight this item and then click Insert as one comment. And then this window pops up. We've got our comment down here, so we have to make sure that we're kind of reading this to fill it in. So it's saying the siding is failing. And then the last part is saying the areas are blank. So where's the location of the area? So we've got our choices over here. We could say the areas are front of home, and you have some connectors over here. So front of home and rear of home. Let's just say it's everywhere. That's not good. And then once you have your choices, you're going to click Insert into Comment below, and that just fills that in for you. So your auto comments are definitely helpful. It might save you the trouble of typing in a comment or, having to figure out exactly how you want to word something. So definitely take a look at that list just to see if there's already something there that might help you out. And you'll have a different comment library for each of these items. So if we went under doors and did the same thing, we're going to have a different set of comments here. Okay, and you might be thinking, what if there's a comment that's not in there that I use a lot? You can definitely add that to your own library. So let's say under Windows, let's pretend I looked at this list, but I didn't really see anything that really fit what I was looking for. You can actually just type in your comment, and I'm going to be really boring and say this is my comment. I am not a home inspector, you guys, so I'm not going to try to do that. But let's say this is, a really great comment that you would want to keep. You would go ahead and type that in, and then you're going to click the one that has the plus sign to it. So that's just telling you you're adding to your library. So we'll click on that. A window will pop up. Let me bring this over here. Okay, so we just have to come up with a shortcut name for that comment just so we can find that easier. We'll call that test. And then you could go ahead and just click on OK. Before I do that, I want to show you a couple more options that you have. Just briefly touch on these. You do have some different filters where you could change the font color or bold or italicize anything. You can also automatically add an attachment or a picture to this comment. So this might be helpful, if there is a comment that you're always saying and it needs to have a document that goes with it every time, or, a line drawing, anything like that. You could definitely click on these features here, and that will allow you to automatically bring in a picture, the same picture, every time you use this comment. So let's do that for this one. Let me go to some of the test pictures that I have here. Let's say, and this is probably not going to make sense because I don't think I have, well, we'll use this window. I'm going to attach this picture, give it a shortcut name, and then you'll see now next to the picture icon I have a number 1. So this means anytime I use this comment, it's going to automatically put that picture in. So we'll click on OK. And whenever you're adding a new comment, you do have to put that into a category. So over here, I'm just going to look for exterior, and we'll just go ahead and put that into that category here. So now you'll notice the Save T button has lit up. This is a template change, so we'll click Save T. And then just to show you what that's going to do here, I'm going to clear this out. The next time that you go to put in a comment, you can actually go to the first wand right here, and there's our little test comment right here. And we'll go ahead and insert that. And automatically that picture is going to show up every time. So this is my comment, and then this is the picture that just comes in with it. You do have the same option down here where you can put in a picture label if you want. So that's up to you. You can also add additional pictures right on top of this. If you have more pictures of the windows that need to go in here, you can definitely do that. Let's say that we wanted to put this one in, which kind of looks the same, but we'll do that. And now let's actually spend a little bit of time looking at how you can edit your pictures. So this is a medium-sized picture automatically. If you wanted to change that, you would use these buttons up here. You do have some basic editing tools like crop and zoom. Zoom overlay is actually a new feature that we just added with our newest release of 5.3, and that happened yesterday. So if you are using 5.3, you probably see this button on there. If you do need to upgrade to 5.3, if you need any help doing that, just let us know. We'll make sure to help you out with that. But this zoom overlay feature is actually pretty helpful because you can highlight a certain section and then actually zoom out. So this might eliminate the need of maybe 2 pictures because you can actually do a picture on top of a picture where it just zooms into that particular area. So that's a nice little tool that we just added in. We do have some basic things like arrows and circles that you can add on to your pictures. If you need to point something out in particular, you could click on the arrow and then click on the picture. If you need to change the placement, if I'm not really happy with where I put that, just want to make sure to move your cursor back to select. And then you can actually click on that arrow and kind of, move that around wherever you need that to be. So you can add arrows, you can add circles, lines, you can also add text on top of the picture. can definitely change the text size, the font, the color, anything like that. And then you have this text that could just go anywhere on the picture. Some simple things like changing the brightness can be done down here, and the contrast, if you really want to edit those a little bit more. Another new feature that we did add with the new release yesterday is this button right here. And when you click on that, that actually allows you to edit the comment while you're looking at the picture. So this comment that we already have in there, I could just add to it, remove it, and just do that while I'm looking at the picture. All right. If you go a little crazy, maybe this is your first time testing it out and you put all the arrows on this picture. You have two options. You could do select and then highlight what you want to remove and click remove. And you would have to do that one by one. Or if you want to just completely start over, let's say, I just need to try this again, you can use this button down here and that will revert that to the photo locker. And that takes everything off of there. And speaking of the photo locker, if you've ever heard us mention that before, your photo locker is going to be a folder in your HomeGauge folder on your computer that saves a copy of any of the pictures that you've put into your report. So it's kind of just like another backup storage for your pictures. And you'll see that these pictures that I've moved into the report, they have a little green box with a check mark above it. And that's just telling us that this picture is in the photo locker. Simply because I use this picture and it's in the report, it's also in my photo locker now. You can decide to just put extra pictures in your photo locker that aren't in your report. Let's say this one, I don't really need to put this in my report, but I just want to save it in the photo locker. You can do that by highlighting it and then using this icon here, which is going to save that to your photo locker. So now it has that same icon above it. The ones that I have used in the report, you'll see that they do have a check mark down here just to let you know that those are already in there. You can still use them again. You can select them again and bring them in wherever you need to put them. Or if you kind of want to whittle down the list and not see those ones anymore because you've already used them, you can use this icon here, which is the eye with the line going through it. And that just means it's going to hide the pictures that are already in here. So if I do that, this list is going to be a little bit shorter, and I only see the pictures that I haven't put in yet. So nice little way to kind of keep track of where you are. All right, any questions so far on adding comments or adding pictures into your report before we move on to the next little section here? All right, well, we're going to keep moving along if we don't have any questions right now. So the next section that I'm going to move into is on styles and materials. So just keep in mind the inspection items. This is going to work the same way for everything that you see down here when you go into the next section. It'll look the same format. So you would just make sure to go ahead and check off your answers, put in your comment, put in your pictures. And then your next step is going to be your Styles and Materials tab right here. Each section is going to have its own styles and materials, so we'll have one for garage, we'll have one for interiors. And this is a pretty quick one to answer. It has your main item over here on the left, and then your answer choices on the right. So over here, we could just click on where it says garage door type. We could click on that. And then we just have to decide, which type was that. Let's say to manual. And then just go on to your next item. So garage door material, let's say it was fiberglass. And then the manufacturer, let's say Stanley. Okay, so you would just go through and just make your selections. It's pretty quick. If you need to add any answer choices or add any items to this, you can do that as well. You might see that, maybe these brand names aren't exactly what you need. If there's something else that you need to add over here, you would just click on where it says the name and then use the Edit T button. This is going to change our template. You'll see this is a list of all of the choices that we see over here to the right. So you can reorder these if you want your top ones to always be up at the top. You can delete things if you've never, I've never heard of Ideal, I don't know. You could, really highlight anything you don't need on here and then delete it. Or you can hit this ABC button to just alphabetize it if you want to see it that way. To add a new item, remember that's the plus sign right here. New brand. So we could put that in and click on OK. If we wanted that one to move up a little bit, we could, or I'm just going to go ahead and alphabetize that. All right, and then we'll see we've got our new brand in here. And then you just do the same as before and make sure to save your template. It's always important. And if you're looking for, more information about customizing your template and doing some of these slightly more advanced features, feel free to let us know. We do have another webinar that we recorded a couple weeks ago that goes over editing your template and customizing it. If you feel like you're really ready for the next step and you are looking for something like that, feel free to watch that video or give us a call if you have any questions. We're more than happy to to log in with you or to chat with you and make sure that you've got that set up how you want it. All right, and then our next tab that we have over here is for Overview. Overview section, you might not really need to come to this section too often, and I'm kind of showing you a bad example here. Let me get out of Garage, because Garage, I believe, is the only section that doesn't have Overview listed in there with actual comments here. But if you're using one of our templates, more than likely you already have a header and a footer for each of these sections, and this just tells your customers what you're going to be looking at. It just tells them what you're going to be observing, maybe things that you aren't required to look at, any disclaimers or anything, you might want to put those in here. So you probably don't really need to type too much in here, but you do have a nice place where you could put in extra pictures down below. So some inspectors will use this location as kind of an area for additional pictures that you have for this interior section. They might be pictures where there's not really anything that's a defect, but they're just more pictures that you want to include. You can definitely do that the same way. Just click and drag that over. All right, so that's a nice little location that you can put those in. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, the last section that you'll see over here says optional. So by default, these ones aren't included, but you do have them available. So if you wanted to start using any of these, let's say, you went to an inspection and they have a swimming pool. You could go in here and just unexclude this just by checking this. And then now that item is going to be opened up. And this would work the exact same way. The column headers are a little bit different in this one, just because it is a pool. So just something to kind of pay attention to, but it will work the same way. So those would be for any optional sections that you might run into. The last item that we have on here is the summary. And remember that we were saying whenever you mark something as repair replace, when you put a comment there, it's going to be in the main part of your report, and then it's also going to be in the summary section as well, so it will be repeated. So just keep that in mind. This is just showing us the current things that we have in our summary. In this particular report, I just have one summary section. It is a little bit more advanced, but it is possible to have multiple summaries in your report. We've seen some inspectors that might have like a safety summary, a maintenance category, maybe separate it by electrical and plumbing. If you feel like there's another way that you want to organize it, it's definitely possible. It's in that previous webinar as well. All right, let's check real quick to see if there are any more questions. The last part that we're going to get into here is just going over how you actually upload or print or send out this report. So we're going to kind of pretend like we're mostly finished with our report here and we're ready to send it out. So let us know if you have any questions so far before we get to that section. Okay, Lewis, yes, great question. So he is saying that he's on version 5.2 right now. Yes, you can definitely upgrade to version 5.3 at any point. Yeah, it's a kind of like a minor update that we're doing. It's not really like one of the big version changes. So yeah, if you currently have version 5 point anything, you can definitely upgrade to 5.3. If you have services with us, either through a subscription or if you just pay for the monthly services or yearly services, that does entitle you to the larger updates as well. So whenever we progress to version 6, you would already kind of qualify for that. But yeah, definitely, Lewis, feel free to go ahead and upgrade whenever you're ready. And just to show you, if you haven't done so, you can come up here to Help, and then click on Check for Updates. If you don't see it where it says your software is up to date, it will give you an option to go ahead and download our most current version. But if you have any issues with that, feel free to call us and we can get you on the right track with that too. All right, everybody. So I think we are ready to move on to the final section, which is uploading and delivering your report. So we have a couple different ways that we can do this. Just to quickly show you up here, whenever you feel like you want to take a look at your report and see how it's going so far, you can either click on Print or Upload. They're both going to show you a preview of the report, so you can kind of see what it looks like at the moment. And the nice thing about the software is it's going to tell you if you haven't answered everything. So if you get this message and you think you have finished your report, you can definitely click on No, and what it's going to do is actually take you to the first item that you haven't answered. And shame on me, I have not answered my first item on this report, so you could kind of just go through that list. You can even change this to say Find Unanswered and then Find First. And mine's a little cut off here, and then just keep doing Find Next until you have answered everything. But we're just going to pretend that we answered everything, so we'll say, yes, I've answered everything. And then now we have our list of our print settings in here. This might look a little bit different than yours, just because you can come in and create your own as you need to. The main one that I want to look at right here is actually Full Report for Upload. You probably have something very similar to this on your software. And to actually show you what this includes, I'm going to highlight this item and then click on Edit. And this will just show you everything that's going to be included when you select it. So it's going to have your cover page, your intro page, your table of contents, attachments, the full report. It's also going to have the summary. And you can choose to have the pictures in the summary, or you can take them out if you want it to be a little bit shorter. You could also choose to have your agreement and your invoice in there if you want. And then over here on Other, and I know we had a question earlier about using a PDF report. So if you are considering that, you would want to go over to this Other tab right here, and then make sure to change that to PDF. By default, the one that says Full Report for Upload is going to be an HTML report, which is the web presentation. All right, so we'll go ahead and click on OK. Before we actually look at it, let me just show you some of the settings that you have on here. So under Style and Format, we've got a couple different options here. The main ones are going to be a grid format or a narrative format. So that's kind of up to you. The grid format, of course, is going to have these little boxes on it where it just shows what you've selected. The narrative is going to be a little bit more condensed, so you won't really see those checkboxes, and it'll just say inspected or not inspected down here. So go ahead and, kind of test them out, see which one you like. You can always go in and change this at any point too. So I'm going to choose grid 1, and let's use modern blue. Sure. And then, if you find one that you're happy with, feel free to check this box down here, and that will just save the settings, so you don't have to choose that every time. There is also a way to set up your logo and also a signature in the software. If you need any help at all with that, give us a call. We can help format that for you and make sure it's in here. So yeah, definitely let us know if you need any help with that. We can make sure to get that set up for you. But that would just make sure that your logo actually shows up on the top of your report on your cover page. You also have a tab over here that says Miscellaneous. Might not, need to look at this too often, but this kind of just shows you what would show up on your headers and your footers. Kind of the main text that you see on there, like the headings for comments and styles and materials. All right, so let's go ahead and preview this so we can see what it looks like. So I've got full report for upload. I'm going to click on OK. And here is my report. So this one I have modified a little bit, so the summary is at the top. Yours might be on the bottom if you're kind of using one of our standard ones here. But this is going to show you the breakdown of the report. So we've got our main sections over here. Your comments are going to be below. It says inspected. Cover picture. So, you just make sure to scroll through this, make sure everything looks right. You haven't missed anything. You've got all your pictures in here. Okay, and then at the very bottom, we've got our invoice here. And we did add some attachments to the report, so we've got both of those as well. We've got the PDF that we have attached, and then we have the 4-point with the picture pages. All right, let's say we're completely done with our report. We're really happy with how everything looks. Our last step here is to go ahead and upload this. And when we say upload, that means we're sending it to the dashboard. Once we have this report on the dashboard, that's where we can send out the notifications to your customers and to your realtors just to let them know that the report is ready. So I'm going to click on Upload. Okay, so report has been uploaded. It's asking us, do you want to go to your dashboard now? Select yes to view the report and then send your emails, or you can select no and do this later. I'm going to go ahead and say yes so you can see what that looks like. All right, and let me go ahead. I'm just going to sign in on my other screen for one moment here. All right. Okay, so now that I've logged in here, we can see here is the report that we just uploaded. So it's got the cover picture, it has my address on here, it shows the date and time of when I've uploaded it. And then if we scroll down a little bit, you can see we've got a little bit of work to do here. We just need to go ahead and send this out so the customers and the realtors can actually see everything. So we can do that just by coming right under the address right here and click on Send Emails. It's going to show everybody that was listed on this report here. So you can decide who's going to be getting the email and then if they have viewing permission or forwarding permission. I'm going to uncheck Russell, who is the head of HomeGauge here. I don't want him to get an email. We'll go ahead and uncheck him. I'm actually going to uncheck Maria Rep and just send this to the buyer. So I'm going to send this person an email. I do see a red line over here. That's just telling me that I don't have viewing permission right now. So if I send this to Maria, she's going to get an email, but she won't actually be able to see anything, which is not good. So we want to make sure to say, yes, you can view this. And then if you want that person to be able to forward it to somebody else, like family member, insurance company, you can also decide that and see if you want them to have forwarding permission here. So we'll do that. Before you send it, if you want to customize your message, you can do that. By default, we already have these set up for you. So you'll see this will have your logo if you have that set up. You do see some weird text on here that has $signs and brackets. Don't be afraid of those. It's just another merge field where that just pulls in the information for you. So it's going to have their name right here. It's also going to have a link where they can sign in to view the report. And then it's also going to show them their username and password. So it tells them pretty clearly, what they have to do to get to it. And this would just be the one that the realtor would see, which is pretty much the same format, but just their unique information to sign in. So you can modify these if you want, or if you want to put like a personal note in here, feel free to type directly into these boxes. Or if you just want to keep it simple, you can go ahead and just click Send Emails. And then we're just going to go back to All Reports here. And now if we come back, we can see it looks a little bit different. So my buyer, I have sent her the email, and then I've also given them viewing permission so they can actually view the report. When they do log in and look at the report, you will get a check mark right here as well. And depending on how your notifications are set up, you should also get an email when they log in. And then you can see down here the other customer and the realtor, I did not send or give them viewing permission of anything, so we don't have any check marks for them. All right, so at that point, you're pretty much done. So you're just waiting on your customer to sign in and view everything. So I really hope that this webinar was helpful for everybody. I hope this, was a good beginner video for everybody to kind of get started with the software if you're brand new, or hopefully, it was a nice refresher for those of you that have been with us for a little bit. Matt and I are going to stay around for a little bit longer. If you do have any other questions, we want to make sure that those are heard and we get those answered. If you are needing to leave, or if you feel, really all set and ready to start a report, feel free to exit whenever you're ready, or stay back if you have any questions for us. Oh, thank you guys so much. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming in to view the webinar and chat with you guys. It's always great. The next webinars that we have coming up, I don't think we have that list quite yet. So Matt and I are probably going to be meeting to see what the next topics should be and when those are going to be available. We will be updating that, and we can make sure to put that on our support center so you can view those. And then we also have some emails that we can send you as well with that information. So yeah, let us know if you do have any suggestions, any topics that you want to see for a future webinar. If there's anything that you've had some questions about that you want us to do a video on, yeah, definitely let us know, and we'd be happy to have that for the next one.